And we're live. Welcome back, everyone. This week I'm competing in the AI and Games Game Jam with Andrew. We're working on this project together. It sure looks like it's called a Snack to the Future. It's not. It is called Smack to the Future Clone Wars Edition. And it is hot new game coming soon to a browser near you. It is a retro style brawler, uh, inspired by Super Nintendo, Nintendo games where you're walking down the street, brawling with strangers, and we're building in some conversational AI between levels. Basically, the gist is you're walking down the street, you brawl with people. Eventually, you get enough heat that the police show up, and in order to keep going, you need to gaslight them, convince them into thinking you're innocent. Um, Shooting for some arcade feels, very quick playthroughs, try again, and I'm going to be working on that conversational aspect today. But I will go ahead and walk you through some of the levels that we have so far so you get a feel for the um, vibe that we have going on. We've got our home screen here. Let me make sure everything is built correctly. I haven't hooked up these scene transitions yet. We got our home screen. You get kind of a vibe of the feels we're going for. Pressing start here will take you over to this controls screen, which you can see what the controls are here. I'm going to post that announcement I meant to post real quick. And from there, you are tossed into this brawler level, which don't have enemies in quite yet. Andrew's working on that right now. But you play as this super cool dude, super bad dude, one might say. You can punch, you can kick, you can headbutt, you can jump kick. Um, just gonna walk down the street, you know, beating people up, taking their money. Typical brawler things. There's gonna be businesses in the background. You can pull some fire alarms to get people to come on out, more people to beat up. You also got some security guards coming out that might try to beat you up. So we'll see. We'll see. And at the end of the level, you're going to find the police have been setting up waiting for you. But you get kind of a feel for the vibe we're going for. It's a little boring right now with no enemies, but you know, you can see where it's going. Really excited to get Andrew's enemies in here so we can start brawling in the streets and feeling more like a game. But once you get to the end of this level, you're going to see, oh no, people have been reporting that some bad dudes are booting a boot, and you're going to get interrogated by the police here, which takes you to our scene that we will be building today. Conversational scene. I plan on having the police's message here. I'll have you probably just type here. I could generate some messages, like canned messages for you to click on. I think typing is just fine. And the cool thing that I think I'll do is have your, say, like heat or how much you're wanted, your level, be a number between 1 and 100, which will map to the saturation of both this avatar and the background. So, for example, if you start out at a 40 danger level or whatever we want to call it. If you successfully talk him down, he starts looking a little less mad at you, a little more, alright, you can get on out of here. But if you're particularly bad, obviously he's going to get more and more mad. And that's when you get taken off to jail and lose. Yeah. So we were going to use Convi for this, but I had some issues setting up their asset. It does not compile in the latest Unity, so I might come back to it later, but I think for the sake of just getting something working, we're going to go with ye old tried and true ChatGPT. I will build out the logic for like handling the conversation, and we can always swap out the underlying model later for either different logic or make sure it works like in a web browser and so on. But why don't we go ahead and get started? Going to set up a conversation manager script. And when we get to this scene, we will have already gotten scored on our heat based on our actions in the street level. So we're going to come in with heat, and the police officer will generate a message saying, hey, for high heat, maybe he's super suspicious. He's like, hey, you need to chill, my guy. You're coming with me. If we're really low heat, maybe he's more nice of like, we've been having reports of some bad dudes in the area. You kind of look a little bad. You see any bad dudes around here? And we'll let the player respond. That will both prompt a new response from him and also potentially modify the heat value. Right now I'm thinking we will either go until the player manages to get their heat either below 10 or like all the way up to 100, and below 10 means they go on to the next level, they got away. Up to 100 means you go to jail, game over. But we might also do something like you only get a certain number of responses, and whatever your heat is at the end of that, say you get it up to like 60 or 70, you still continue on to the next level, but that's the heat you start at in that level. So it could make the next level a little more difficult, a little easier, less binary. Either you get away scot-free or you go to jail. It's more like you're trying to maintain that repertoire going on. Before I jump into it, I'm going to double check my stream, make sure my audio is working. Looks like it is, and make sure everything's going well over here. Cool. And Andrew's working on hitboxes, so he may pop in. Might help him out with some of that as well. We'll see. We'll see what happens. But let's start on this conversation manager. We are going to start with public float. We get our player heat in here, just so we've got it. Default it to whatever, doesn't matter because we'll set it and start. I guess we want it between 1 and 100 just to scale well. We can always normalize it. Let's say We will load it from player prefs or something, but we'll say to do load player heat from player prefs. Just because I'm not setting it in player prefs yet, I don't want to do the loading. I want to be able to manually set it in the editor and test as we go. So, the things we need for a conversation. We probably need to track whose turn it is to talk. We need to keep a log of all the chat messages so we can pass that through as context to ChatGPT. We want to track that heat because it's going to change throughout the conversation. And I think I've never actually done text input in Unity. Surely it's fine. If it's clunky, maybe we'll do the canned messages, generate canned messages for you to click on, but I think just having a text input is probably fine. Canned responses. So let's go ahead and get that initial message from the police officer working. I think that will cover the usage of OpenAI generating messages, so we can reuse that throughout the conversation. We can also have that factor in whose turn it is to talk, and probably also the message log, so that'll cover most of it. So let's say public bool waiting on player response is equal to false. So if we are not waiting on a player response, for example, we just got to the scene, we will generate police response. So that's where we will generate text from the chat logs so far, populate our speech bubble, and set waiting. We'll set waiting on player response to true to tell the player they can respond. We're also going to unlock the player input so they can send messages. Maybe we want to allow them to type before then, but we don't want them sending a bunch of messages back to back. So we'll lock it up. Cool. So I think over in my OpenAI service script I wrote, we have a model for chat messages. I don't know if we want to use that. Maybe we just probably not use that and just do an array of strings. Well, system and user. I feel like there should be a third role here with like AI. Role assistant. Cool. So we'll map assistant to police officer, user to player. We probably also want an initial system message. So let's set our, we also have a prompt object here. Let's do a guiding prompt for the whole conversation. Let's create one of those. That is a object I've set up as well that just holds a system message and a user prompt. And some settings. It's just nice to be able to use scriptable objects. So let's say interrogation prompt. We will write a system message. This is targeted at generating the police response. So system message is instructions for the police. The user prompt is whatever the user has said. So we will say, you are a police officer in the 90s responding to a call about a violent disturbance on the street. You have seen a perp that matches the description you've been given and are questioning them about what they've been doing, why they are there, and whether they are innocent. So we're also going to bake in like some sort of confidence score in here that maps to the heat changes. But we'll come back to that as well. But it'll probably be some sort of JSON of like how suspicious they are, and each message will either add or remove to their suspicion. So for the user prompt here, we will leave it blank for now. We're going to populate that from the script every time a user types in a message. However, for that initial message from the police, we probably want to say, like, the suspect has not noticed you. You should initiate conversation with them. And we'll also say the text you generate should not include quotation marks. Should be dialogue, but not include quotation marks. We'll see if that works for formatting, because we kind of want this format here and not stop right there, he said, and so on. Cool. So this should work for our initial message. We'll see. I guess I can load up ChatGPT and we'll just see how it works in the game. So, back to our conversation manager. In start, we will load the player pref heat. Cool, so we will be updating guiding prompt from, say like void send player response. This will trigger when the user has typed in a message and they've clicked send. So what we'll do is update guiding prompt user message lock speech send button, and we will set waiting on player response equals false. So there's our loop between the two, alternating, and that's how we'll update the user prompt here. So we do want to include this prompt in there. Start our heat at 0.4. And I think after each of these, we will also say void update graphic update visuals. So this will happen after the police has interpreted a response from the player. The player says, I'm not guilty. the police will generate a response back that will probably include some sort of change to the player heat, and then it will update the visuals in the scene, namely the saturation on the avatar, and we're also going to update the background image on the camera. We'll just color pick to whatever the image background is, which might be difficult actually. We'll figure that out. We'll skip the camera for now. But we can either do like chroma key on the image to remove the background and just do the background separately. Apply like a red to the actual character and then separately apply a background color so it's all the same instead of having this hard line. But we will figure out the camera background afterwards. But in order to update the visuals, we will need some references to objects. We want the public that is an image, sprite renderer, speaker, portrait, and grab the main camera. We can just always grab that in start and just set the portrait manually. Cool. So when we get in here, load the scene, waiting on player response is false, so we're going to generate our police response. We also want to, yeah, that should be fine. So let's go ahead and generate our text. We can do this for the initial message, but I need to double check how the messages array is built in this library to make sure we have a way to include previous messages. So we're creating chat response request data here and only here. So we probably want a method like this that allows us to pass in JSON request data directly. So we can build this manually and pass it in. So we will plan ahead for that, and what we will do is take all this for now. It just returns the JSON string to send. We will shove that in void conversation.json. Shove it in here for now. Return our string. And system message is the guiding. What's it called? Yeah, guiding prompt. Seems like we should be defaulting to something. So if we don't have a name override, we'll default to the name in the OpenAI service. That's fine. We'll name override, and we'll say get component AI service dot model name. User prompt, max tokens, also guiding prompt. Set a temperature. Looks like we're not over. This looks like the library is wrong. It doesn't respect what the prompt temperature is, but deal with that another day. So this all looks fine. Cool. So this will build a JSON object that includes not only the conversation log, which we will add to by changing this in a minute, but also all of the settings from the prompt. So we don't necessarily need all these settings as well. We could say create chat log. Well, this messages is included here. Yeah, it's just easier to do it all, I guess. Doesn't really matter. Station data JSON. So here, let's say public list chat message log. So both from the police response and the player response, we want to be adding to this. So let's say add message to message log, and the chat message object includes a role for whether it's user or assistant, which is fine. Cool. We might need some sort of... So there's two ways we can generate the police response here. We can, one, do it asynchronously, where we say we have a flag for whether there's something in the background running to generate it, and then when it generates, it triggers a callback that updates, maybe handle police response or something. Alternatively, we could do it all inline here synchronously. The downside of that is it's gonna take up the main thread. We might be able to throw this in like a coroutine, but at that point I feel like we should just do it asynchronously anyway. So what we're gonna do for generating responses and say handle police response generated, well, on generated police response. I'll double check the syntax for how we're doing that, but we will say also some state here, and we'll say public bool generating police response is equal to false. So if we are waiting on a player response and we're not already generating a police response, we want to flip that flag and after we've processed the response we've generated, we will flip it back. So now we actually want to switch these into this method, which runs after the text is generated. This method is just for triggering that generation. Let's clean up some of these real quick. We have whose turn? The chat message. Probably not doing canned responses yet. We'll see how easy it is to do text input. So let's see how these are used. We want the generate chat response with callback method, which is called this way and specifies a callback method, which takes probably a string, generated text or something. So let's steal that. Say generating police response. We will start a coroutine of that method. We want our guiding prompt. And we also will want to incorporate the chat login here. So I'm going to assume generated text. Cool. Let's call this generated response, just to be clear. Cool. So user prompt. This doesn't seem like. Yeah, so we actually want to build a slightly different method which lets us pass this in directly. So what we're going to do is exactly that. Let's call it generate response with callback, and rather than passing all this data in already, we will say string JSON request data and action string on generated. That should be everything because all these parameters are already encoded in that JSON request data. Cool. So we have our JSON request data here. We can literally just steal the rest of the code, duplicate it, and since we're doing that, we will go ahead and deduplicate it by calling that method from here and treat this as just a helper method. So do I need to return the enumerator? I probably do, yeah. Cool, so we basically just stripped out this logic and built a wrapper around it. So we can either call it the original way for the same logic, or we can skip that first step and build the logic ourselves. Cool. So in that case, we can now say build conversation data. So string request JSON with full chat log is equal to that. And we will grab the chat log here. But for now, we will switch this out for just the two new parameters. And we actually don't want to be waiting on a player response yet because we have not generated anything to respond to yet. So we're going to move that down to what fires after it's generated. And we'll say flip the flags. Cool. So now let's pull in this message log. So we will say, we'll start with the system message, which we always want to have, and then we will for each chat message in, what's our variable called? Message log. We will go ahead and just add it to messages. Add message. Cool. So running through this, we load the scene. The message log at that point is literally just the system message. It does not include this user prompt yet. So let's go ahead and include that actually, because we do want that at the beginning of the conversation.
Hey man, what's up?
Hey, not too much.
How's it going?
Pretty good. Just doing some OpenAI, getting that conversation flow going.
Nice.
The scene view looks so good.
Yeah, you mean just like the main scene?
The one for the conversation that I'm working
Oh,
on.
nice. I'm excited to see it. Is it on stream right now?
Yeah, it is.
Where's the link to the stream?
There's one in the announcements channel.
Okay, got it. Oh yeah, yeah. It looks great, doesn't it?
Yeah, gonna have the saturation on this guy go up when he gets madder. If you calm him down, he looks more normal. And I'll
Nice,
blend the background to do the same color.
nice, very cool.
How's it going
Um,
with you?
Good. I was gonna ask on the. So I was looking through the player controller
Mm-hmm.
script. Is that where the hitboxes are, or are they somewhere else?
They are somewhere else. If you
Are
want,
they in the gradual? No. Where are they?
check my screen. They are actually sub, like children of the character. So he's
Okay.
got a hitbox that is disabled right now because I only enable it on animations. That's the one that collides with other things like when he punches, but he also has a hurt box, which is if any other things touch that, he takes
Yeah.
damage.
Okay. Cool. And the hitbox moves with the animations.
Yeah, let me show you that. So I
Okay.
have, for example, in the player punch,
Mm-hmm.
you can basically create this animation here, and it can also have keyframes of basically properties you want to update at each uh, point in time.
Uh-huh.
So when I have this hitbox here, when I first start playing, uh, this is how you set it. You just click record and then you can like
Mm-hmm.
change stuff. So I turn it on here at the beginning of the animation,
Yeah.
and then I just like go edit the actual hitbox, and then
So
for
the
like
collider is actually a child of the animation.
um the collider is a child of the player, but the animation updates the collider.
I see. Because I'm just trying to figure out how can I tell if a certain animation hit the enemy, you know?
Right, you're trying to differentiate between like punch and kick.
Yeah, or just like walking into them.
Oh, I see. Um Not sure offhand how we would differentiate like the actual attacks, but the if they're just walking, then there won't be a hitbox because it'll be disabled. It's only enabled in the actual animation of punching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So there should never be like a collider that touches them.
Do you know how you would write it in the script to check for that collision?
I think so. Are you using like on collision enter? I think
That's what I
is
was gonna try and use, but I I'm just a little bit confused with it with
yeah.
the hitboxes.
So I would say let's let me look at this guy. If I have a box collider 2D on this guy
Mm-hmm.
and I go into that script, nope, that's the script. Let's see. I'll just throw a punchable script in. I was going to do the barrel anyway. Punchable barrel. So I think what I would do is use on collision enter, and you can check the name of the collider that hit. So you could say like um, collider.name is equal to hitboxes and not hurtboxes. I think that would work. Let's say on collision enter 2D. So we got our collision here, but we would also say like if collision dot game object dot name is equal to hitboxes, then
Mm-hmm.
the actual collision is from an attack versus this could be like the player's hit hurt box collider just collided with
I
it.
see. So it would be like separate from, you could just keep it separate from where you actually do the animations.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Let me double check that this works.
Okay, yeah. Let me try this too.
Yeah. And what we could do if we wanted to make it more granular and like differentiate between punch hitboxes, kick hitboxes, and just like walking hitboxes, instead of having this one hitbox child object, we could have a like punch hitbox and kick hitbox. And I'm gonna check this console over here. So yeah, so that actually is not what I expected. We are colliding with it,
Mm-hmm.
but I would expect the collision from attack to be. Let me print out what the actual name is. See what object is colliding. So we punch this guy. It is just the player object. Does he have a collider on him? Oh, well, he does not. So that's strange. I would have definitely expected the. Maybe it's because these need to be triggers. Um, well, that ain't right.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. All right. I think I've got to start here. You can get back to the thing. I'm gonna log off here because I'm still focusing with it, but I'll try and make the on collision uh, enter thing work.
Mm-hmm.
Another question for you: when I add physics like a rigid body 2D
Uh-huh.
to the enemy,
Mm-hmm.
how do I stop it from falling?
There's a checkbox for gravity, I think. Oh, gravity scale. And this is probably 1 by default, just set it to 0.
Okay, set it to 0. Got it. Yeah, because they were falling off the map.
Right, right.
Okay, cool. Makes sense. Okay, I'm gonna jump off here, but I'll jump back in once I get the hits working.
Cool. Good luck. And make
Okay,
sure you're
see you.
using on collision enter 2D, not the original one.
Yeah, yeah,
Cool, cool.
sounds good.
All right.
Okay, talk to you in a bit.
See ya. Alrighty. Back to interrogations. What were we doing? Oh, yes. Okay, so you load in the scene. We are waiting for, or we're not waiting for a player response. We're not waiting for a player response, and we're not already generating the police response. Then we want to generate a police response. This fires off in the background. Nothing happens until it's done. When it's done, we build that request JSON. This is not when it's done. This is to generate the response. We build that request JSON with the full chat log, which at this point is just the system prompt and the user prompt. We add that in, start our coroutine. When we have a police response created, that's when we want to say message log dot add new chat message. That's our syntax we use down here. Let's say role is equal to assistant because that's what we're mapping to police. Content equals generated response. So that's going to now append to our chat log to pass through in the future. And we want to now populate our speech bubble with it. That seems like it'll be great to test. We'll say text mesh pro UGI, I believe, police message text. So we can just set it directly. What I think we'll do, because we want a typewriter effect or something like the streaming effect, we'll say police text typewriter effect here, and then we'll just simulate that it's done. We'll come back to that. Cool, so we're not locking the player input yet because we don't have that logic, but that should now, when we enter the scene, we should get a message from the police here. And I think what we want to do for the first message is when we will show this speech bubble. So we will also say public game object police message container, and we'll say set active is true, which will show the speech bubble. From then on, we're never going to set it back false, so this will be a no op. It's fine to keep in, but we will say police speech bubble is disabled by default. And we'll have player speech bubble. Maybe we'll set that active at that time too. Well, let's set those references. We probably want some sort of loading indicator somewhere that we can say, like, generate police response will say to show loading indicator for people that are on like a slow network. And then we'll also say, probably at the top, cool. One moment.
One. In other words,
Alright, I have to show this progress update on screen. Andrew's getting a good highlight. Easy peas, look at this great game. It's kicking him out of there. I'd play that game. Alright, let's see this police response working first try. I promise. Make sure all our references are set. Police message text is not set. That would have been a problem. Right. What is this? Just not a UGI. Text Mess Pro. Cool. Text goes in here. We've got our avatar. We'll be able to see our message log, I think. We'll see how it serializes. Let's give it a shot. Surely I have an API key in here already, but I don't want to click that button on stream. Console, bad request. That's not right. Okay. Let's say, what's our data? Alright, empty model. That's a bad request right there. But we do have our messages. We've got our user, max tokens 500, temperature, floating point number, obviously. Let's go get our correct model. So what is it set to here? Empty string, which is not null, which means we're not defaulting to the backup. How does this syntax work? I don't know. So what we're gonna do is just say, forget the override. We don't need it. We have it set in the OpenAI service. That's the model we want to use on everything, I promise. Oh, camera slid down, didn't even see it. Alright, let's try this again. Clear console, we load in, generate a police response, put it in the speech bubble, show the speech bubbles. Here's our response. The fact that it didn't immediately error tells me it's working perfectly, probably. We wait, and we wait, and we wait. Hey, we got something. Oh boy. Alright, we got a full-on chat log. 500 tokens is a way too much. Alright, so let's get to tweaking that prompt. We will say only generate one message from the police officer and only print that message. And we'll say 140 for tokens. Violent disturbance in the you've seen part of the match's description. You can give a question about the deal. Why did they win? We will split the content from the format. Should be the text you generate should be a single message from the police officer to the suspect. Do not generate any messages from the suspect. Do not include quotation marks or speaker tags. Okay. We'll be overly verbose. We can always cut this down. Only print a single. No, it's fine. It's fine. It'll work perfectly. 140 tokens. It's pretty slow, but probably because it was so long. Let's give this another shot. Okay. Hey there, excuse me, can I have a moment of your time? I'm Officer Johnson with the police department. Why did we break? Cool, cool. We got that though. So now, let's include the heat into this initial user prompt so we can see the effect that has on their initial message. But this looks to be working minus the Unity error, which I'm sure is just a Unity error, not anything I wrote. Cool. So let's say on a scale of 1 to 100, this suspect suspiciousness or aggressiveness. Suspiciousness score is 10. Let's just see. That should be a mostly friendly message, and then we'll bump it up to like 90. See what he says. Excuse me, sir, I'd like to ask you a few questions. I noticed you matched the description of someone involved in a violent disturbance that occurred on the street. Can you please tell me what you've been doing here and why you're here? I'm just trying to gather information and determine if you're innocent. Reasonable, a little verbose, but whatever. Let's say 90 now. Here we say threat score. Excuse me, sir, I couldn't help but notice the commotion here earlier. Mind if I ask you a few questions? What are you doing in this area? Okay, so let's try threat score. Apparent threat score is 90. And we'll also say an innocent 1 to a dangerous 100, a wildly dangerous 100. The suspect's apparent threat score is 90. Let's see what he says. Have a moment of your time. Okay. Oh, I wonder if since we're using OpenAI, he's never going to be angry. Hmm. Text should be very emotional and um, on edge. Text should be very short and to the point. Say very short, curt, and to the point. Can we get this guy to be aggressive? What are you doing here? Explain yourself. Okay, that's better. That's better. Let's try once more. Hey, you stop right there, criminal scum. What the hell are you doing here? What's your name? Why do you match the description of the perp we're looking for? Answer me now. Perfect. Okay, so let's drop their threat score down to 10. See if he's nicer. Hey, you stop right there. Explain yourself now. Okay. Say a perfectly innocent one. Using the threat score to determine how aggressive to be. Using the apparent threat score. A little more exact. So he should hopefully be nice here. What the hell are you doing on the street? Why are you lurking around here? And don't you dare lie to me. Maybe we make him perfectly innocent. Because the other thing we can do is just say perfectly innocent is 10. Excuse me, sir, I'd like to ask you a few questions. What were you doing on the street just now? Are you aware of any disturbances in the area? Perfect. So what we can do is say, on a scale of a perfectly innocent 10 to a wildly dangerous 100, and then we can use their real score here, but as long as they're below 10, they're counted as perfectly innocent. And maybe say 90 here. So let's see what happens when perfectly innocent is 10, but their threat score is 1. Stay right where you are. What are you doing? Are you aware of the violent disturbance that's happened here? Are you involved in any way? I mean, it's fine. It's fine. Heavily using aggressive to be. Low threat scores should produce friendly. Friendly text, while high threat scores should produce aggressive. Can I ask you a few questions? Perfect. Let's try it once more. We'll bump it up to like 40-ish. May I ask you a few questions? What were you doing here earlier today? Let's say they are a little more suspicious. Oh wait, that's not at all what we wanted to update. So hopefully they're super nice in this message. May I have a moment of your time? Yep. So maybe we even bump this down to like 20 and 80 even. So their score is now 40. The default, probably, that we'll shoot for at the beginning. The first conversation. What's your name? What are you doing here? Why do you match a description of a violent perp we're looking for? Answer now. That's reasonable. Let's try once more. What the hell are you doing here? Why do you match a description of someone causing a violent disturbance? Talk now. Okay. So let's also bump him up to 90 and just see how aggressive he gets. Pretty similar, actually. Let's also say text should not include swearing, because I think that's the rules of the game jam. And let's go ahead and say, including hell. Maybe it's fine. Maybe it's fine. Okay, so this seems fine. What we want to do here now is say heat score. So now we can go in and before we generate the first response, we will pull in player heat score and update first prompt. So we'll say, do we have heat score here somewhere? We do player heat. We'll say guiding prompt dot user message equal to, here's my, try to add a syntax error somewhere. Probably, but oh well. Do guiding prompt dot user message is equal to guiding prompt dot user message dot replace whatever it was. I think user heat score, and we will say player heat. User prompt. And I think this is all. Replace all. Replace heat score. Player heat. I feel like that's exactly what I just had. Why is it not updating? Should use the other signature. Float char. Ah. Cool. So now let's double check that we incorporate the heat in the prompt we've been given. We do have heat score, heat score. We're printing out the request we're making, so let's just double check the message. Of 0.4. Right. Because it's actually but it does include it, so that's all we needed. Cool, so what we need to do now is get player input working so we can respond. I am going to double check the message log showing up in the editor though. Cool. So theoretically we should be able to say one from user, no, I'm very busy, sorry, and then uncheck this, and it should generate another one. Look, I understand you're busy, but I need to ask you a few questions. It won't take long, I promise. Cool. So, that's going to be the conversation flow. Do we want to go for a certain amount of messages? Do we want to go until the heat is too high or too low? Or do we want to give the police an action they can do, which is let them go or take them to jail? I will ask Andrew if he has opinions. Might as well put it on screen. Few options. We have a conversation until player heat is less than 10. They get let go, or greater than 90. They go to jail. Have a conversation for a number of messages. Let them go unless they go to jail. Give the police a few actions the LM can trigger, such as take player to jail or let player go. And while we wait, why don't we also see what ChatGPT has to say. I'm building conversational game with police when you're innocent, you're not complete each level. Say these are some options. We'll say think critically and like a senior game designer. Outline the pros, cons of each approach. Then add your suggestion. Okay. Players get direct feedback on their actions. They'll see their heat rise. I feel like that can apply to any of them. Need to make sure they don't escalate. Also applies to any of them. Short conversations. That's a good point. We don't want, well, I mean, if you say I'm guilty, that's probably enough to end it. Potential frustration. Close to being let go, but say one thing and get arrested, it can be frustrating. So this is important so we don't like lock someone into playing forever because they can't get out of the conversation. And they can kind of expect how long each conversation will be. And it will probably, well, I guess in the number of messages case, it wouldn't scale with how high their heat is, but this one, for example, if they have a high heat to begin with, the conversation will probably take longer to bring it down, versus if they have a low heat, it should be a quick conversation. So in terms of like gameplay, what's fun, if this is the main point of the game, we want to incentivize people to play it as much as they want, which goes hand in hand with the high score being from beating up as many people as they can, which provides the highest heat and the longest conversations here. So the heat conversation might be the best approach here. But yeah, it might be a little more monotonous. I can definitely see some conversations where if it's number of messages, like you go in and you say I'm guilty, and then he just talks to you for 5 more messages. It's like, why? Police actions. Um, Not sure that really adds a lot of complexity. But one thing it could do is like different images or something. If it says you're going to jail, you can show a police car image or something, but we can do that on the other ones as well. Does increase the design complexity a lot, and I feel like it's not guaranteed that they'll ever trigger a specific action. So it does seem like the other approaches would have an easier out if anything goes wrong. So their suggestion is trigger by heat, have a maximum number of messages, makes sense, and so just do all three. I feel like you can skip that by just increasing the heat enough if they say something incriminating that the heat triggers fire. So I think that's what we will do, unless Andrew's got a different opinion. We will go until the heat is above or below those thresholds, or the number of messages has passed. Max number of messages, I mean. Excuse me. Cool. So let's figure out player input. I don't even know whether. Yeah, I feel like any text input box is going to be in the UI. Does Text Mesh Pro have like a editable field? I mean, we could listen for keystrokes and like populate the text. Doesn't seem like a good way to do it. Is there even text input in the UI? Because we could just position it. It is a static scene. We can position it in the right place. So input field, text, which is just Text Mesh Pro. So what about this input field? We don't need a canvas under our speech bubble. I mean, we could actually. Let's pull it out though. Let's say it's a game. enter text. What if we position that over the speech bubble? And I hope it has like multi-line. This is some text that goes over multiple lines, hopefully wrapping and stuff. So, viewport. It's got a background image, which we don't necessarily need because we'll be over the text. That'll probably be nice. Content type seems fine. Multi-line. So pressing enter should submit, not do a new line. Since we don't necessarily want a like submit button. Okay, that looks fine. Maybe we do this and back to the speech bubble. Maybe we throw in some text mesh. Say your response. You want to flip that -90. Cool. So this will say your response question mark. We'll do the simple that one. Throw down character size to like 0.6. Maybe a little too small. Oh, 0.6. 0.2. That looks pretty good. 1.4. 7.16. That looks pretty good. Throw this in the black. And maybe we also say like press enter to submit. Press enter to speak. Press enter when done. To confirm. Drop this guy down to like there. Well, let's see that at max resolution. That seems fine. Definitely want to position this correctly though. So this don't remember what resolution itch.io uses, but we'll target that later. Why is this not selectable? Interactable is on, transition, color tint, so that's going to be probably when it's active. Let's see if we can click it actually when the game is running. Okay, we can. I'm innocent, I swear. And then if you press enter, it tries to submit, does not do a new line. So that's perfect. Now how do we on end edit? On value changed, probably one of those is what submit binds to. Boy, they, pig. Cool, cool. Can we kind of reduce that border color a little bit? So that's background. That's probably the active color. Huh. Color multiplier, fade duration. That's fine. It's not a big deal. Point size should give us about 4 lines of text. That seems fine. Character limit. We probably do want that, but we can add that in later. But we definitely don't want people pasting in the entire script of the B movie and using up all their tokens. Let's set it to a very high 500 for now. Well, I'll do 600. Like, people shouldn't ever hit it unless they paste in a bunch of stuff. Okay, line limit. I think that's probably fine because it should scroll. We'll double check that now. I'll paste in some text. But it should scroll and it should also be limited. Yeah, so this seems fine. We don't necessarily need to limit the lines. Cool. Strip sliced. Vertical scroll bar. It's fine. Caret stuff. So, what we want is submit to trigger send player response. So what I will do is go ahead and fire that up on value changed. Make sure that it is not firing every time you enter a new letter, and that it is firing when you press enter. I'm wondering if ond and edit might be the correct one, but let's see, this is conversation manager. So that in, send player message. Public. Send player response, right. So here, now, if we go in, we'll get our initial message from the police. We will type a message. We'll look at the console and make sure that we're not sending player message on every keystroke. Hello, we are sending message on every keystroke. Are we actually... okay. Yeah, we don't want to do that because we're sending requests in the background. Let's do that real fast. And we will do on edit end instead. And we'll double check that this is the correct one. Cool, cool. I was only eating banana. Sorry if that made you uncomfortable. So if we say enter, sending player response. Perfect. So that should basically just work. What we're going to do here now, we don't need to update the user message anymore, because now we're just using the message log. Well, so we actually want to do messages. We'll just say message log here, and we will build these original ones at the beginning of the scene. So our message log is now the single source of truth. Start. Create the initial messages array. We'll say message log is equal to our original system prompt, our original user prompt, and then we no longer need to do that. So now we have our original message log of system message, the you should initiate conversation with them message. Maybe that should even be another system message. I'm not sure how doubling up on system messages works though. And then police will generate a response. We actually want to do this. Beforehand. So now we have heat score updated in that initial message. Police can generate a message with the full chat log instead of building our message log manually from the chat log. When the message is generated, we will now add it to the log. So now we do the exact same thing and say user, and we want, what's our reference for the player? Well, it's public, what is this even? Text Mesh Pro input field? Maybe that'll work. Player message text. So now we append the player message to our chat log. Don't need to do this. But now our message log ends in a user message, which makes it good for generating the next assistant message. We can do that. We have done that. But now if we say waiting on player response false, it should generate the next police message. As long as this gets reset, generating police response is false. Yes, so this should be the full loop. Am I missing anything? Yes, I need to make sure that that player message text can take this. It cannot. Text area? What is this? Rect mask. So is this the text? I don't know how input fields work. We have this, but we also have, okay, it's the same. So, do either one of these fit in? Okay, that one can, but this one can't. So we'll double check that it pulls the message correctly. Cool. What were you doing on the street just now? I was bowling. What were you doing on the street just now? So now this should have, looks like it will, well, we have our message, we have our initial user message, we have our assistant's message, we have our user's message, and we now have their response. We received a report about a violent disturbance in this area. I actually just apparated in, so I was in India for up until this moment. Sorry I wasted your time, sir. Thank you for the information. Is there anyone who can vouch for your presence in India during the time of the disturbance? Cool, so this works. Conversation works. What we want is a heat bar displayed so people can see the result of each message, whether it makes the heat go up or down, and by how much. And we probably want some little like indicators of jail up here and be free down here. So what we can do is, first of all, let's wonder if I can screen record while streaming. Surely I can. But let's do one of these real fast. Let's record the stream to share in Discord, on socials, etc. It works. Cool to show off. That. Alright, before we record, let's get our positioning correct. Drag this onto another screen so I can maximize it. And then we'll just reposition it that manually. That. And like this. I think we want to increase the font size just slightly on a bigger resolution, and we'll obviously come back and tweak that. I do wonder, maybe it's easier to just like bind it to the bottom so if the window resizes. Does this work? Not really. I am not good at UI. Oh, that worked. I'm great at UI. Alright, now we will record it. Excellent. But we do want this. Ooh, actually, we want another. You know, we don't need to have these. That's fine. It's fine. Everything's fine. Recording isn't working. Okay, so I guess I can't record while streaming. That's alright. Cool. Well, that's fine. What we are going to do now is add that heat bar, and I'm going to keep streaming for about 20 more minutes. I think we can wrap up this conversation then. So, we could do it in UI, but I think it's probably just simpler to say square heat bar. Is this in the canvas? That's not what I want. Silly goose. 2D object. Sprites. Square. Heat bar. What is this giant white? Gotcha. Right. Okay, so this will be our heat bar container, which we will position over here. Maybe we put it right here. Do say like this. We will grab a color. Maybe like, no, I like the hat. So we've got our heat bar container. We also want heat bar value, which that one we will grab a color from his face. We will add, can I add a rect transform to 2D elements? Where did you go? Okay, we'll put that on top of the other one, and we will say, we'll fill up kind of like that. We do want to have just a little bit of margin, so let's actually scale it like 0.95, and let's shove it up just a tiny bit, not that far, like that. Let's do like 0.92. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so I want this actually to be bound to the bottom of its container, so I can just update the scale, because otherwise it's going to do that. So let me just do the noob thing. Can you do this? Surely. Actually, game object. Yes. Has to be a child of canvas. That's what I thought. Unity set bottom of object to bottom of parent. I could probably just generate this code with ChatGPT, but that's fine. So let's do that. And let's do it with our fancy schmancy bot. We will do it with fancy schmancy ChatGPT. Oh, I'm working in Unity 2D. I have a parent heat bar container object of a certain size and a child heat bar value object that scales based on heat score, scales vertically based on heat score. I want to make sure the bottom of heat bar value is always aligned with the bottom heat bar container instead of scaling from both the top and the bottom, just the Y scale. Can you, how should I do this?
How's it going, man?
Pretty good. How about you?
I finally figured out the collisions.
Nice.
The issue was I needed to create a new script and attach it to the hitbox, not to the
Oh.
player. You see what I
Oh,
mean?
yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, since the hitboxes are an independent game
Mm-hmm.
object. Yeah, but the cool thing is now it just works for all of them.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Very cool.
Yep. Um, so okay, now I have it like registering when the enemy gets hit, and it's also calling a function on the enemy too. So I can basically make the enemy like stop and do
Yeah,
some animation or something.
yeah. So there you can like change the health and also trigger like a I've been hit animation or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Nice.
exactly. Okay, well, just wanted to let you know that it took me forever, but I figured it out.
Nice. You want to see the police conversation?
Sure. One second. Let me open this up. Okay, yeah, let's see it.
I'm adding this heat bar over here right now. It doesn't work yet, but the actual conversation does. So you show up here. Um,
Is it based on a heat factor,
it
the
is,
conversation?
yeah. So I have
Oh, nice.
a low heat score right now, so he's kind of friendly. But if you walk in with a high one, he's like, "What the hell are you doing here?" So can I ask you a few questions? I say, "Sorry, but you already just asked one. You get one more." You press enter. It probably should do like a loading indicator, but all right, fair enough. Have you been involved in any disturbances in the street? Um, Only this one where you're disturbing me, you disturbing little guy.
Is he
Wink.
gonna arrest you for this?
Nope. He's gonna let me go.
Nice. So my suggestion would be to suggest a couple of things for the player to say, because
Yeah.
some people really don't like the feeling of just a text box.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
So if we had like three we could suggest, and then one that was just like um, type your own, you
Hmm.
know. I
Yeah,
think that would be a big like gameplay improvement because some people don't want to think of what to say.
that's a good point.
Yeah.
I will add that in. I'm gonna
Excuse me.
have, after each of your messages, this heat bar will go up or down so you can
Nice.
see what the result of what you said was.
Nice. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
I think it's going to be awesome, especially if we can make it where it like is fast paced, you know, like
hmm.
it shows up a couple